In the misty, pine-shrouded wilds of the Pacific Northwest, a tale unfolded in the spring of 1985 that stirred both intrigue and outrage. Mark Keller, a man with a singular obsession, announced in March his audacious plan to track down and kill a Bigfoot, an elusive, towering creature of legend, to settle once and for all whether the beast was real or just a figment of folklore. A postal worker from Eureka, California, Keller abruptly quit his job, presumably to dedicate himself fully to this perilous quest. The destination of his hunt remained a closely guarded secret, but whispers of his preparations sent ripples of unease through communities far and wide. The news of Keller's expedition sparked a firestorm. Letters flooded newspaper editors and phone lines buzzed with voices decrying his mission. Conservationists, locals, and Native American groups alike raised the alarm, fearing not only for the mythical creature, but for the fragile balance of the wilderness itself. In Skamania County, nestled in southern Washington state, a region where Sasquatch, as Bigfoot is known in these parts, had reportedly been sighted lumbering through the forests. The response was swift and resolute. County commissioners, led by Chairman Ed Callahan, voted unanimously to make killing a Bigfoot a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a hefty $5,000 fine. This was no mere symbolic gesture. Callahan, a pragmatic man with a deep connection to the land, spoke gravely of the risks. "Our loggers up here are big burly fellas," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "They let their hair grow long, and in the dim light of dawn or dusk, they could easily be mistaken for Bigfoot. We don't want trigger-happy hunters with night scopes stalking our woods, shooting at anything that moves." The county's prosecutor Robert Like echoed this sentiment, noting that the commissioners had no appetite for commando types descending on their forests, armed to the teeth and eager to bag a legend. The controversy reached beyond the rugged landscapes of Washington. In Sacramento, Vincent Harvier, executive director of the Intertribal Council of California Incas, penned a heartfelt letter to the editor of the Sacramento Bee. His words carried the weight of centuries-old wisdom, rooted in the traditions of native peoples who have long revered Sasquatch as more than a myth. "Many of our Indian nations have always been aware of the reality of the existence of Sasquatch," Harvier wrote, his tone both reverent and resolute. "As a result of this knowledge, we have always accepted Sasquatch as our brother." For Harvier and his people, the creature was no mere curiosity but a vital thread in the tapestry of life woven by the Creator, the Grandfather Spirit. "Sasquatch is life," he declared, "and we are taught to respect life. Our ancestors understood that certain species are here to support other life, and taking life needlessly was unheard of in their time." His words painted a vivid picture of a world where harmony with nature was paramount, where the act of killing a being like Sasquatch carried consequences far beyond the physical realm. "If Sasquatch is killed," Harvier warned, "the person responsible will have to answer for his actions somewhere on the trail of life. A reckoning not in this world, but in the sacred journey beyond." As the debate raged, the forests of the Northwest seemed to hold their breath. Would Keller, undeterred by the outcry, venture into the wilds with his rifle, chasing a shadow that had eluded humanity for generations? Or would the collective will of those who saw Sasquatch as kin, a symbol of the untamed, mysterious heart of the wilderness, prevail in protecting both the creature and the fragile peace of the land? In the spring of 1985, the question hung heavy in the air, as real and enigmatic as the beast itself. In the shadowed heart of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient forests whisper secrets and mist clings to the towering pines, one man has spent nearly 3 decades chasing a legend. Cliff Crook, a name now synonymous with the search for Sasquatch, has dedicated his life to unraveling the mystery of the elusive creature many call Bigfoot. It all began in 1956, when a young Crook, then a boy growing up near Totem Lake, Washington, came face to face with something that would alter the course of his life forever. Now in 1985, living in the quiet town of Bothell, Crook's obsession burns brighter than ever, a flame kindled by that fateful encounter and fueled by decades of relentless pursuit. It was a crisp night in 1956 when Crook, barely a teenager, ventured into a pasture near his home with a friend, drawn by strange noises that pierced the stillness. As their flashlight cut through the darkness, its beam landed on a pair of glowing blue-green eyes, hovering an unsettling 7 feet above the ground. The boys froze, their breath catching as the creature, massive, shadowy, and impossibly real, stared back, Then, as swiftly as it appeared, it turned and melted into the night, leaving only questions in its wake. Just weeks later, Crook's fascination deepened during a camping trip with 3 friends near Totem Lake. As they settled into their sleeping bags, their dog, a loyal companion, began growling, its hackles raised. Without warning, it bolted into the brush, only to be met with a violent struggle. The boys, roused by the commotion, watched in horror as the dog was hurled 6 feet into the air, as if tossed by an unseen giant. Terrified, they fled, abandoning their campsite to the mercy of the forest. From that night on, Crook knew he wasn't chasing a myth. He was chasing something real, something that lurked just beyond the veil of the known world. Now, nearly 30 years later, Crook's commitment to finding Bigfoot is unmatched. By day, he works as a gardener and landscaper, a profession that grants him the freedom to drop everything when a new report comes in. But his true calling lies in his role as the steward of Bigfoot Central, an unofficial clearinghouse for Sasquatch information operating out of his Bothell home. From a room he affectionately calls his Bigfoot Vault, filled to the brim with plaster casts, photographs, and meticulously cataloged reports, Crook sifts through the evidence that arrives at his doorstep. "We're getting closer to finding physical proof," he says, with a quiet confidence, his eyes glinting with the conviction of a man who has seen the impossible. "I insist that I have the proof right now," he adds, though a wry chuckle follows. Most people, I guess, would need to be poked in the belly button by one of them before they believe it. Crook's journey hasn't been a solitary one. In 1975, at a Sasquatch meeting held at Green River Community College, he crossed paths with Renee Dahinden, a fellow researcher from Richmond, British Columbia. For 11 years, the two have been comrades in arms, investigating sightings across the rugged landscapes of Washington and beyond. Their partnership has earned Crook a respected place in Bigfoot circles, where his name is spoken with a mix of admiration and curiosity. Together, they've chased leads to places like Walla Walla, Darrington, and the Cascades, collecting plaster molds of massive footprints and handprints that defy explanation. These artifacts, now proudly displayed at the Bothell Library, are the tangible fruits of Crook's labor, a testament to his belief that the truth is out there, etched in the earth. Unlike the fleeting, often sensationalized reports of UFOs, Sasquatch sightings are rare and deliberate, Crook explains. Bigfoot Central receives only 2 or 3 solid reports each year, along with a handful of possibles, many originating from the Grays Harbor area, a hotspot for encounters. These accounts come from varied sources: hunters stumbling upon tracks in the wilderness, campers startled by strange noises, even police officers who quietly reach out when an unusual report crosses their desk. Each story adds to Crook's growing collection, a passion project that spills over into every corner of his life. He grins at the thought of his room full of this stuff, a treasure trove of evidence that he hopes will one day silence the skeptics. Crook's dedication extends beyond his home. Plans are underway for displays at the Seattle Public Library and Ivar Hagelin's iconic Smith Tower, where the public can marvel at his plaster casts and photographs, snapshots of a mystery that refuses to be solved. For Crook, these exhibits are more than just showcases, they're a call to others to look closer, to question what they think they know about the world. Every footprint, every blurred image, is a breadcrumb leading deeper into the forest, where the truth about Sasquatch waits. Decades after those chilling encounters in 1956, Cliff Crook remains undeterred, a man driven by the unshakable belief that the creature he saw as a boy is still out there, moving silently through Washington's dense forests. With each new sighting, each fresh track discovered in the mud, he feels the gap between myth and reality narrowing. For Crook, the search for Bigfoot isn't just a quest, it's a lifelong vow, a promise to follow the shadow of Sasquatch until it steps into the light. And in the wild, untamed heart of the Northwest, where the trees stand sentinel and the air hums with secrets, he knows the truth is only a heartbeat away. In the spring of 1970, as the last whispers of winter faded from the Great Smoky Mountains, a Sevier County couple set out for a leisurely drive along Highway 441, a winding ribbon of asphalt that cuts through the heart of the Smoky Mountains National Park. The air was crisp, scented with pine and the promise of new blooms, and the couple, filled with the quiet anticipation of a day spent in nature, hoped to catch sight of a black bear lumbering through the underbrush, a thrill to spice up their outing. But the wilderness had something far more extraordinary in store, something that would haunt their memories for years to come, and leave them questioning the very fabric of the world they thought they knew. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled light across the road as their car hummed along the familiar curves of the highway. The forest was alive with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of a bird, a serene backdrop that lulled them into a sense of calm. Then, in an instant, that calm shattered. A shadow, tall, impossibly tall, stirred among the trees to their right, moving with a purpose that sent a chill down their spines. Before they could process what was happening, it stepped onto the asphalt, crossing the road directly in front of their car. The husband slammed on the brakes, tires squealing as the vehicle lurched to a stop. The couple's breath caught in their throats, their eyes locked on the figure that now dominated the scene. It stood over 7 feet tall, perhaps closer to 8, its slender frame cloaked in smooth dark hair that shimmered faintly in the morning light, as if brushed with dew. It moved upright like a man, yet its gait was anything but human, fluid, deliberate, and unnervingly swift. In mere seconds, it traversed nearly 100 feet across the highway, its long arms swinging rhythmically, each step covering ground with an ease that defied logic. Its head, oddly proportioned, seemed to sprout directly from its shoulders, lacking any discernible neck, giving it an otherworldly silhouette. Most unsettling of all, it never turned to acknowledge the car or its wide-eyed occupants. It was as if the couple, frozen in their vehicle, were insignificant to this creature, a mere blip in its solitary journey through the wild. The couple sat in stunned silence, their hearts pounding in unison as they watched the creature reach the far side of the road. With a final graceful bound, it slipped into the dense bushes, vanishing into the forest as swiftly as it had appeared. The leaves barely stirred in its wake, leaving no trace of its passage. For a long moment, neither spoke, the weight of what they had witnessed pressing down on them, like the heavy air before a storm. The husband, his voice barely above a whisper, muttered something about it being a bear, clinging to the comfort of a rational explanation. But his words faltered, and his wife's wide, unblinking eyes met his, reflecting the same unspoken truth. No bear, no creature known to science could move like that. No animal walked with the upright stride of a man yet carried an aura so utterly alien, so deeply primal. As they drove away, the Smoky Mountains looming in their rearview mirror, a heavy silence hung between them. The beauty of the forest, once inviting, now felt like a veil hiding secrets too vast to comprehend. They never spoke of returning to Highway 441, as if an unspoken pact had been forged to leave that stretch of road, and whatever called those ancient woods home, far behind. The memory of that fleeting encounter, of a creature that defied reason yet moved with undeniable purpose, lingered like a shadow in their minds. In the quiet of the night, when the world grew still, they could still see it, the tall dark figure gliding across the road, a fleeting glimpse of the unknown that the Smoky Mountains had chosen to reveal, if only for a moment, before swallowing it back into its depths. In the heart of Northern California's Marble Mountain Wilderness, where 241,744 acres of untamed beauty sprawl beneath craggy peaks and whispering pines, the summer of July 2000 held a secret that would forever change a group of unsuspecting campers. This vast ancient land where crystal streams carve paths through alpine meadows and rocky summits pierce the sky, pulsed with a quiet mystery. The forest felt alive, its shadows heavy with the weight of something unseen, something watching. For 18 members of a local church group, their retreat into this pristine wilderness was meant to be a sanctuary, a chance to unplug, to breathe in the serenity of nature. But the mountains, it seemed, had other plans, and what they encountered would linger in their minds like a half-remembered dream, both wondrous and unsettling. The group had pitched their tents among the dense pines, their laughter and chatter filling the air as they settled into the rhythm of camp life. The forest buzzed with the sounds of summer, birdsong, the rustle of leaves, the distant trickle of a stream. Among them was a security guard, a man whose love for exploration had led him to wander countless trails. Restless and curious, he decided to scout the surrounding terrain, hoping to find a better spot for their camp. The trail climbed steadily upward, winding through thick stands of trees until it opened onto a flat, secluded clearing at 6,126 feet. The air was cooler here, sharp with the scent of pine, and the world felt impossibly still. Then he saw it, a structure that stopped him in his tracks. Tucked among a cluster of trees stood a hut, its presence as jarring as it was inexplicable. Woven from branches 3 to 4 inches thick, it looked like the work of no human hand. The limbs, snapped clean from nearby pines, bore no marks of tools, no saw cuts, no axe scars, just the raw, brutal evidence of immense strength. Some of the surrounding trees, their trunks as thick as 8 inches, were fractured, bent by a force that seemed to defy reason. The hut rose 6 feet high and stretched 10 feet wide, its interior lined with a thick bed of shredded pine needles, the center sunken as if something heavy had recently lain there. The air around it felt charged, as though the forest itself was holding its breath, guarding a secret too vast to speak. Heart pounding, the security guard hurried back to camp, his mind racing with what he had seen. He grabbed his video camera, its weight a small comfort against the unknown, and called for his wife and son to join him. Together, they trekked back to the hut, their footsteps crunching through the carpet of fresh needles. The camera hummed to life as they approached, capturing the eerie structure in the soft morning light. The son, emboldened by curiosity, slipped through the hut's large front entrance, his small frame disappearing briefly before emerging from a smaller opening at the rear. The father panned the lens across the scene, documenting every detail, the woven branches, the sunken floor, the fractured trees, when a sudden cry broke the silence. "Dad, there he is!" Across the ridge, a mile away, a shadow stirred. There, silhouetted against the jagged outline of the mountaintop, was a figure, tall, impossibly thin, and unlike anything they had ever seen. It stood at least 7 feet, its long arms dangling nearly to its knees, swinging with a slow, deliberate rhythm. Covered in dark, matted hair, it moved with a strange grace, pacing back and forth along the ridge as though caught in a moment of indecision. Was it fleeing? Was it angry? The creature's movements were erratic, almost anguished, its silhouette shifting in and out of focus through the camera's lens. At one point it paused, raising its hands to its head in a gesture that seemed almost human, a fleeting expression of distress or confusion. Then, with a sudden burst of motion, it began its descent, thrashing and swaying as it vanished behind a jagged cliff. For 3 agonizing minutes the camera captured the creature's strange dance, its form flickering against the backdrop of the mountain. The family stood frozen, their breath shallow, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The forest, so vibrant before, now felt heavy with a sense of trespass, as if they had glimpsed something sacred, something they were never meant to witness. The creature was gone, swallowed by the wilderness, but its presence lingered in the air like a storm that had passed but left the sky bruised. That night, back at the camp, the group huddled around the fire, their voices hushed as they recounted the day's events. The laughter that had filled the woods earlier was gone, replaced by a quiet unease. Yet strangely the forest remained still. No rustling leaves, no snapping twigs, no heavy footfalls in the dark. It was as if the creature, whatever it was, had left them in peace, its message delivered in that fleeting, frenzied display. When morning broke, the security guard returned to the ridge, driven by a need to understand. He scoured the rocky ground where the figure had disappeared, searching for tracks, for any sign of its passage. But the mountain offered nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, just the silent expanse of stone and sky. A year later, in the summer of 2001, he returned to the same spot, hoping to find the hut unchanged, a monument to the mystery he had encountered. But the clearing was empty. The ground where the hut had stood was churned, disturbed by something large, as if the earth itself had been upended. Nearby, a new fire pit stretched along the soil, its stones charred black, a stark reminder that something had been here, something that had moved on. Had their presence driven it away, an intrusion too bold for the wilderness to forgive? Or had the creature been drawn elsewhere, pulled by the deeper currents of the Marble Mountains, where secrets older than the peaks themselves still roamed? The memory of that summer morning clung to the campers like the scent of pine, a story whispered only among those who had stood in the shadow of the unknown. The Marble Mountain wilderness, with its endless forests and silent ridges, kept its secrets close, offering only a fleeting glimpse of the creature that called it home. And somewhere, in the heart of those 241,744 acres, the mystery lingered, watching, waiting, as eternal as the mountains themselves. In the rugged expanse of El Paso's Franklin Mountains, where the rocky cliffs and sparse desert scrub conceal secrets older than the city itself, whispers of a spectral presence have haunted the area known as Cottonwood Springs for generations. Long before Trans Mountain Road, now State Highway 375, carved its winding path through the mountains, this desolate stretch was a place of eerie encounters, where the veil between the living and the unknown seemed to thin. By the summer of 1985, tales of the Trans Mountain Ghost had become the stuff of local legend, fueled by stories of a mysterious figure and his loyal dog emerging from the shadows to startle unsuspecting travelers. These accounts, steeped in history and tinged with dread, have left an indelible mark on El Paso's collective imagination, drawing the curious and the cautious alike into the mystery of Cottonwood Springs. The earliest documented tale of the Trans Mountain Ghost appeared in the El Paso Times on October 31, 1971, penned by Ed Kimball. The story spoke of a spectral figure, a man in a long flowing robe, accompanied by a large dog, that had forced countless El Pasoans to flee the road in terror. According to local lore, the ghost's origins trace back to the 1800s, when Juarez priests reportedly operated a secret gold mine hidden deep within the Franklin Mountains. During the revolt of the Manos Indians, the priests fled, leaving a single cleric and his faithful dog to guard the mine's riches. Whether through betrayal, tragedy, or the weight of their solitude, the priest and his companion perished, their restless spirits bound to the mountains they once protected. Since then, visitors to Cottonwood Springs have reported chilling encounters, a massive dog darting from the brush, its eyes glinting with an unnatural light, chasing groups away from the area. Some spoke of a man appearing alongside the beast, his presence silent but commanding, as if warning intruders to stay away. When Trans Mountain Road was constructed, cutting through the heart of the Franklin Mountains, the stories only grew stranger. Drivers reported sudden, heart-stopping moments when a robed figure and his dog materialized on the roadside, forcing vehicles to swerve to avoid them. No trace of the man or his animal was ever found. No footprints, no signs of life. Just the lingering chill of their presence. The legend gained further credence through the work of Karen Ramirez, an associate professor of linguistics at the University of Texas at El Paso, and Alan V. Embry, a student whose 1971 term paper for UTEP English professor John O. West, a folklore specialist, documented the tale. Their research painted a vivid picture of a ghost tethered to a forgotten mine, forever guarding its secrets. A second, more unsettling story emerged on October 31, 1979, in another El Paso Times article by Craig Phelan. This account centered on a young boy, James Carmack, who ventured into the Cottonwood Springs area on Halloween night in 1961. What he encountered was no mere ghost but something far more monstrous. A creature known only as the Thing. As the boy explored the rocky terrain, a figure appeared atop a boulder, its form vaguely man-like but grotesquely distorted. Its head was unnaturally large, dominated by a gaping mouth stuffed with jagged, oversized teeth. Towering over the boy, larger than any man, the Thing leaped toward him with a predatory grace. Heart-pounding, James fled, his footsteps echoing through the silent wilderness as he escaped with his life. The story, passed down through whispers and retellings, has endured, a chilling reminder that Cottonwood Springs harbors more than one mystery. These stories, rooted in the folklore of El Paso, speak to a deep-seated fear of the unknown, a primal dread that lingers in the quiet spaces of the desert. Whether it's the ghostly priest and his dog or the monstrous Thing, the Franklin Mountains seem to hold secrets that defy explanation, leaving those who encounter them forever changed. Local books on the subject are scarce, but the El Paso Times archives, available through oldnews.com, offer a treasure trove of historical accounts that delve into the region's haunted past. For those eager to explore further, a visit to the Franklin Mountains might just stir the imagination, or something more. As the sun sets over the Franklin Mountains, the air grows heavy with the weight of these tales. The Trans Mountain Ghost and the Thing are more than stories. They're a testament to the enduring power of mystery, the pull of the unknown that keeps us looking over our shoulders in the dark. Somewhere in the shadows of Cottonwood Springs, the past still walks, and the mountains still whisper. Deep in the shadowed forests of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient trees stand sentinel and the air hums with untold secrets, the legend of Sasquatch looms large. For centuries, tales of a massive, hairy, man-like creature have woven themselves into the fabric of the region, fueled by hundreds of reported sightings, mysterious footprints, and handprints etched into the earth. By 1985, the phenomenon had captured the attention not only of curious amateurs but also of a small, determined cadre of academics willing to stake their reputations on the possibility that Sasquatch was more than a myth. Among them were two anthropology professors, Roderick Sprague of the University of Idaho and Grover Krantz of Washington State University, whose shared fascination with the creature sparked a groundbreaking study that dared to ask, what if Sasquatch is real? In his office at the University of Idaho, Roderick Sprague sat surrounded by the tools of his trade, books, papers, and a poster on the wall depicting a cartoonish Sasquatch clutching an uprooted tree in one hand and a screaming camper in the other. Off limits, it warned, touting a fictional Bigfoot repellent to ward off the beast. Sprague chuckled at the notion. No such thing as Bigfoot repellent, he said, his voice carrying the weight of a man who had spent years sifting through evidence and skepticism alike. But when asked if Sasquatch itself was real, he leaned forward, his eyes sharp with conviction. All I'm saying is, let's not pretend it doesn't exist, he declared. The phenomenon is real, whether you believe in the physical animal or not. Sprague opened a book to a series of grainy photographs. The famed Patterson film, shot in 1967 at Bluff Creek, California. The images captured a towering, upright creature striding through a clearing, its muscular frame covered in dark hair, its movements both human and utterly alien. Experts at Walt Disney Studios, known for their mastery of special effects, had examined the film and concluded that only one facility in the world could have doctored it so convincingly, and they hadn't. The odds are that it exists, Sprague said, though he stopped short of certainty, urging instead a sociological lens. Even if you doubt the creature, the belief in it is undeniable, why ignore it? Just 8 miles away at Washington State University, Grover Krantz was far less reserved. I'm virtually convinced they exist, he said, his voice steady with the certainty of a scientist who had spent years analyzing casts of massive footprints and handprints. What I found can't be explained any other way. Krantz pointed to the unique features of these prints, feet modified to bear immense weight, unlike any humans, and handprints with digits that curved in unison, lacking the opposed thumbs and then-are pads of a human hand. If these were fabricated, he said, they'd have to be made by an expert primatologist with knowledge no hoaxer could possess. The two professors, united by their proximity and their passion, were an anomaly in the academic world. It's not unusual, Sprague said with a wry smile. It's unique. Together, they edited a collection of articles published by the University Press of Idaho, featuring contributions from American and Russian scientists. 8 of the 9 authors argued for at least the possibility of a large, primate-like creature roaming the world's forested regions. The lone dissenter, Richard Beeson, a University of Idaho anthropology and sociology professor, saw Sasquatch as a modern myth, a living folklore that offered freedom of improvisation for those who believed. Yet even he acknowledged the phenomenon's cultural power. The book delved into questions beyond existence. How should a Sasquatch be studied? Should one be captured alive or killed? Krantz, ever pragmatic, advocated for killing a specimen, arguing that capturing one alive would be nearly impossible. You'd need a body to convince the scientific community, he said, though he cautioned hunters to ensure their target wasn't a human in a fursuit, a mistake he'd seen in at least 4 hoax films. His stance drew sharp criticism from Seattle scientist John Beckjord, who decried such scientific arrogance and argued that the creature's hairy form was no justification for violence. A Russian contributor went further, opposing any harm to the creature, urging respect for its place in the natural world. Both Sprague and Krantz faced challenges in their quest. The lunatic fringe, as Sprague called them, muddied the waters with wild claims, like one Seattle man who insisted Sasquatch was extraterrestrial. Amateur hunters, often secretive and territorial, hoarded their findings, hindering collaborative efforts. Meanwhile, the academic world was not always kind. There's no question Krantz has suffered professionally, Sprague admitted, noting that despite Krantz's extensive research, he remained an associate professor, a rank that belied his contributions. Sprague, who had served as department chairman for 12 years, was insulated from such criticism. They weren't about to argue with me, he said with a grin. A 1977 survey by Ron Westrom of Eastern Michigan University underscored the stigma of 70 Sasquatch researchers. 7 of the 16 academics requested anonymity, while none of the non-academics did. Yet the tide was turning. More scientists in America, Canada, China, and the Soviet Union were beginning to explore the Sasquatch question, drawn by the sheer volume of evidence. Roughly 1,000 reported sightings in the Northwest alone, though Krantz estimated half were invalid, often misidentified animals or publicity stunts. Still, the remaining accounts, coupled with physical traces like footprints in the Patterson film, demanded attention. Sprague posed a thought experiment. Suppose someone told you they'd seen an animal that cuts down trees, builds dams, and slaps its tail as a warning. Have you ever heard of a beaver? His point was clear. Dismissing the unknown outright was as unscientific as blind belief. Krantz, meanwhile, insisted that only a body or bones would satisfy the skeptics. Until then, he and Sprague would continue their work, sifting through casts, analyzing films, and navigating the fine line between curiosity and ridicule. In the misty forests of the Northwest where shadows shift and legends breathe, the Sasquatch phenomenon endures. For Sprague and Krantz, it's more than a creature, it's a challenge to science, a call to question.